Welcome back to Meet the Artist with Richard Janik.
So we're now going musically through your early mid-70s. The first recording, the first studio experience you had.
Yeah, well, I had gone away to high school. I actually went to boarding school. I formed a rock band. Out of, if you could believe it, 150 guys. There was a drummer that was a year behind me, and he was a very musical guy, left-handed drummer, and a really, you know, some drummers just, you know, thrash and bash. This guy actually played music on the drum. So between the two of us, it was basically me playing keyboards or guitar, and a drummer, and another guy who sang along with me.
So you were very driven from a very young age.
I was driven, all right.
So by the time you exit high school, what year is that?
1979. So my first recording experience, just going back to your original question, was while I was in high school and coming home on weekends sometimes, my brother recruited me into a band called the Polkadelics. So I became a member of the Polkadelics. So the first recording I made with them was in the basement of the Embassy Hotel at Polaris Recording Studio.
George, hello.
Yep, in 1978. And that was in June. We did that in 78. It was a 45 RPM record. And I played piano and actually sang on it as well. It was all English lyrics.
What did that feel like? Young fella, 17 years old, I'm on vinyl.
Yeah, to actually hear yourself on the radio it's really, it's kind of almost an out-of-body experience. I mean, and that was just me, you know, playing piano and singing some harmony on a polka record. But years later, when my own stuff was coming out, and I heard actually my first single on the radio. I remember I was driving, I almost went off the road. But then I'd heard about a program that was taking place at Fanshawe College in London that had just recently started, called the Music Industry Arts Program. And my friends were telling me about it today. They said, Janik, this is, if anything's got your name on it, this has got your name on it. I mean, that program is made for Janik. I applied for the Music Industry Arts Program. And you know, you had to do an audition piece along with your written application, and I remember going in and doing one original song, and I did right?
June the 1st, 1979 is kind of a kickoff point for your musical career.
Yeah, I would say that was pretty much the decision right there. That was either, you know how the Scarecrow would say, some people go that way, and some people go both ways, but I went that way. So, and that was my yellow brick road.
And what was the first piece of vinyl you produced from that point?
When I finished high school, I started writing again, and one of the earlier tunes that I wrote was a song called Dinosaur, and that was part of that 1979-1980 song cycle. I did all the instruments myself, so I practiced the drum parts. I borrowed a set of drums from one of the guys in the Polkadelics. Got my drum parts down, got my keyboard parts down, got the bass parts down and guitar parts. Rehearsed this stuff to the nth degree. So when I got into Salem, as soon as the clock started, click track went down. And then piano, then drums. There was a song called Across Europe, the Whiskey Jack song, Empty Hourglass, and an instrumental called Unconquerable. So those 4 songs were in '79. So I took that tape, and in the fall of '79, I took a trip up to Toronto, and I wanted to shop it around to record labels. One in particular, taking a GO train up to Oak Ridges and going to the Anthem Records office. This was pretty heady stuff. I was doing this, I was a little bit scared meeting such people, but I knew I had to do it. And I remember the receptionist saying, well, Mr. Tilke is very busy. And I said, I can wait. And I waited. And I think I waited 2 hours. And then finally Mike Tilke came out and he took my tape. And I said, Mr. Tilke, very, very pleased to meet you. This is an honor. Thank you for your time. And he said, so this is your tape? And I said, yeah. And he said, okay, I'll give it a listen. I'll get back to you. But there was no denying that I had, 10 or 15 seconds with Mike Tilke. And that was special to me.
It takes, a lot of guts to just, posture yourself and walk in the door and do it. Yeah. And at 17, you found that confidence.
Mm-hmm. I just didn't think there was any option, and then I did it again the next year. I started getting my first series of rejection letters, and then maybe I thought that wasn't enough, so I thought, I'll give it another go. So I recorded 4 more songs at a place called Aldon Recording Studio on the West End. I think we had Dinosaur, Empty Hourglass, Living in the Crow's Nest, yeah, and another one, Uprooted, yeah. So with that tape, I shopped it around again to record companies, but I also started getting a little bit of airtime. For example, with Dan O'Neill at CJOM, he actually gave me an interview and talked music with me and talked about influences at the time and how did you put this together, etc. So and then that one led to another one, and so there were a couple of radio interviews in there with a demo tape and another set of rejection letters from the record companies. So shortly after that, and that was so by 1981, I had heard about a studio called Inception Sound, and this was all around the time I was still at Fanshawe College in the Music Industry Arts program. There was an artist from Windsor, and it was a one-off project produced by a guy named Rick Beneteau, and I got introduced to Rick. I can't remember through a studio, I think, well, the studio I was working at the time in town, because I started working at Aldon after as a recording tech. And I listened to this album and I thought, this is really good. I mean, there's some great playing on here. The production is excellent. I got to find out where this studio is, because that's where I got to be with this stuff. Because a lot of the elements that were on that record were a lot of what I was shooting for. I started recording my next batch of songs, bed tracks basically, and Chad was listening intently to what I was doing, and I think he saw some value there. And he made some suggestions. He said, you may not want to play all of your own instruments here. You may want to get some players on your stuff. So that was probably the single most humbling and educational thing for me in making records, was to know when to get off the bus with what I did as far as playing or even singing sometimes, harmony vocals and that, and when to let others serve the project better. Because Chad's perspective was, your purpose is to make a good record. You could play all the stuff on here you want. Nobody's going to, it may not be a good record, but you may have a chance of making a better record if you involve the expertise of others. I kind of matured through that way of thinking pretty quickly, and started reading credits on other albums and things, and realizing that a lot of the records I grew up with like the Four Seasons and Gary Lewis and the Playboys, all studio cats on those records. So as it turned out, I didn't play anything on Dinosaur, and I played one little acoustic guitar strum line, every time that came around in the song. I played that in Awaiting Your Return. And I didn't sing any of the harmony vocals. He got Charity Brown to sing the harmony vocals on both songs. Some very solid and reliable studio players to play all the tracks, and that was it. And then he mixed the stuff, and those were his production credits on there. So I more or less handed it over to him. So then the first single, Awaiting Your Return, came out, and it was getting played all over the place. And, you know, CHFI, CKFM in Toronto, I mean, stations in Marshalltown, Iowa, out east, up north, you know, up and down the 401. I was promoting this record, you know, much in the same way I was going to the record companies. I'd be going to the radio stations, making appointments with the music directors, which was something you could actually do at the time. And they would sit you down in the office and play the record right in front of you, and they would tell you exactly what they thought about it. And most of the time with that first record, it was really good. Sometimes it wasn't. It all depended on where they were at with their perception of what they needed to put on their playlists.
So what did you feel like, or what did you perhaps learn from that first collaboration?
Well, definitely what makes a good record. Could I have participated more in playing parts on the record? I suppose. It may not have had the immediacy and the freshness of it, because when those records were made, when the studio cats came in and just read down the charts, it was basically one pass as a rehearsal, and they were at that level right there for nailing it, and they nailed it on the second pass, and that was it. And you hear that on that record. You hear that energy, and you hear that enthusiasm, and the dynamics, and it's there. So I would say if I learned anything, it was probably the humility to step back and allow a good record to be made. It was interesting how it went. You know, I would get these feedback cards that I would, you know, put a stamp on them, you know, have these cards printed up, you know, with check boxes. Is it playlisted? Are you going to give it a try? Are you going to put it on you know, midnight to 6 a.m.? So I would get this feedback, and I'd keep metrics on this stuff as I was going, all on paper. And, but Awaiting Your Return got so much play that I thought that's what is supposed to happen. So when I put Dinosaur out and it didn't happen, I thought, oh geez, I guess it doesn't necessarily happen like that, because I thought that was going to be the continuation of things. And I put out a single called She's Hiding Away, and I remember distinctly on some of those feedback cards, yeah, this is the one we've been waiting for, because it was more in that realm of Awaiting Your Return, and it was the sound that they had thought I was when that first record came out, because they liked it, and they thought, yeah, that's the Richard Janik sound. And someone said, yeah, this sounds like Richard Janik, right? And so, as typecasting as that might be, you know, it was successful again. So, you know, and when I say successful, I'm not talking about international fame. I'm talking about fairly small scale stuff. There was a lot of Canadian content out there getting played, and I was a very small sliver in that whole landscape of Canadian content.
For our viewers, MAPL was the 4 categories that the CRTC looked at to see if it was a Canadian content.
Right.
The music, the production,
the
artist, and
lyrics.
And the lyrics.
Yeah. So after the Temperate Zone album came out in 87, 88, we did a video for one of the songs, Long Lost Friend.
If you could dream the original dream, would you do it all over again? A little reflection just might be breakup was part of the makeup you wore on your conscience for years. Now it's wearing thin and the truth's getting in. Emotion gonna drive you to tears. And you just can't seem to believe what you feel to be real. Long lost friend, saw you the other day. All overgrown with the weeds that were seeds of a dream. Way back when, do you remember when? And now in frozen silence you try to find some peace of mind, but don't know how to use it. Funny how it comes and goes before you finally lose it. It's washed upon the shoreline, waiting to be found. In light of the darkness surrounding you now, there's a glimmer of hope in your eyes. Loneliness haunting you night after night, may just well be a friend in disguise. But now you just can't seem to believe what you feel to be real. Long lost friend, saw you the other day. All overgrown with the weeds and the seeds of a dream. Way back when, do you remember when? I don't know if you can anymore. No. All overgrown with the weeds that were seeds of a dream. Way back when, do you remember when? I don't know if you can anymore.
What else was on that album?
So the songs were, yeah, She's Hiding Away, that was a single. I kicked off the album. There was a song, When She's Hiding Away, then there was Debbie, there was All These Years, with some great saxophone playing by Ray Manzarol on there, and Long Lost Friend, Summer Shades of Blue, and then Awaiting Your Return and Dinosaur to kick off side 2, Uprooted, Circle of Friends, and Bartender. 3 of those tracks, other than the earlier songs that Chad Urshik had produced, I produced the rest of the album. But I was kind of stymied on the production of 3 songs, getting them finished. And as a lark, I said to a friend of mine, you know, these 3 tunes would really sound good if, you know, like Ian Thomas produced them. So the tracks were half done on multi-track, and lo and behold, I met Ian at his studio and we spent 3 days finishing off 3 of the tracks. And it was quite something. Very, very incredible guy.
A great producer gives to the track a confidence that otherwise it would be without.
That is the term, is confidence.
And the other ability is to mentor that artist, to give them the best performance that they can.
And when there's a producer when you recognize that a producer has those qualities, you want nothing more as an artist than to, you know, impress them. You want to put on a show in the studio and impress them. When Ian Thomas was behind the glass, I thought, I want to do my best to impress him.